All right, good morning. It's Brushfire Mind. It is Tuesday morning. That is Taco Tuesday. And what are we going to talk about today? Today, we are going to talk about racism, specifically the black supremacist racism of Atlanta, Georgia's own Mayor Keisha, Black Girl Magic Lance-Bottoms. Keisha Lance-Bottoms is one of many non-white ethno-supremacists that has been stuck in an office, elected or appointed. Let's not forget about the absolute gross oversight that was the appointment of Justice Sotomayor to the Supreme Court, despite her statements that a Latino woman is more capable of making wise judicial decisions than a white man. That's an interesting, explicit statement to come from an impartial jurist. But
She's a wise Latina, dude. She could she could make you a nice tomatillo sauce while helping you solve the mysteries of life.
or she could just side with every unconstitutional demand that taxpayers fund the murder of innocent children for 20 odd years. But whatever. Um, so what we're really getting into is the riots, the racism involved in the riots, the violence that's spreading across the country. There have been several developments. We've got a guy in Texas that was shot. So it looks like from the police reports now that rather than these bizarre rumors that this guy was pushing his legless, armless girlfriend in a wheelchair when some vapid racist leaned out of his window and shot him. Oh no, turns out homeboy fired 5 rounds first with his AK-47 before the aggrieved motorist, before the surrounded, threatened, besieged motorist unloaded a grand total of apparently one shot, which killed the offender on site.
Now,
And okay, go ahead.
to be fair, um, I've had some pretty reliable sources like Anthony Brian Logan read that situation as it's entirely possible that the motorist fired first. The 5 shots came from him, but all the logic still holds. His car was surrounded and somebody pointed a rifle at him and he said, "Not today." And
Okay,
we're
if the motorist fired first, we know that both men fired their weapons. If the motorist fired first and the shots from the motorist were fatal, then who fired the shots? Who fired the shot after the first five?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, isn't it?
Oh, sounds like huh. It seems like Homeboy would have had to pull the trigger before he was dead. Just saying.
Yeah,
But
there's my point is that that situation's still a little muddy.
yeah, we'll
And
see.
I think it's muddy on purpose, honestly, because God forbid we tell the story that protesters picked on the wrong. You and I have predicted this. Eventually, they were going to pull this nonsense on the wrong person, and a protester was going to get shot. And well, look at how smart we are. We're fucking Nostradamus up in here.
Uh, in all fairness, we have not made a lot of predictions on this channel that did not come true. For example, I predicted a 4+ GDP spike at the beginning of the Trump administration. I missed my time frame by like a month and a half. I don't remember exactly what month or date I gave, but I do remember that I was not entirely correct because I missed the window by a month or two. But anyway, the the other developments in these riots. Now we've got rioters. We've got these terrorists. They're attacking police until the police are forced to use non-lethal deterrents like tear gas, and then they're breaking out leaf blowers and blowing the tear gas back on the cops. Okay, I applaud your I applaud your ingenuity.
I have to admit, that's clever.
I applaud your ingenuity. You showed up with umbrellas and leaf blowers, but let's be real. You didn't show up with umbrellas and leaf blowers because you weren't expecting trouble. In fact, you showed up with umbrellas and leaf blowers precisely
Yep.
because you intended to do the sorts of crimes that are going to elicit a non lethal response. At some point,
At the very
it's
least,
going to have to become a lethal response.
this goes back to a point that you've been making, where if you say I support Black Lives Matter, you're not supporting the idea of Black Lives Matter. You're supporting the ideology behind Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, if you show up to a BLM protest and you're not somebody who subscribes actively to the whole Marxist uh, tamale, then it's this simple.
So highly likely to throw bricks and Molotov cocktails.
Oh wow, your connection just went completely shit for a minute there. So, but anyway, if you're showing up to the Black Lives Matter protest and you don't intend to throw Molotov cocktails and bricks, you are there. You are being drawn out by bait to provide cover. You're being enticed into serving as a human shield and a poll number. So the BLM leadership
Yeah.
gets to point at you and say, look, these people support our message. And that means that we have something akin to a petition for redress. And you are a bullet sponge for when it goes wrong.
Yeah, Stalin would love you. He'd refer to you as one of those useful idiots.
So what has Mayor Black Girl Magic done as far as all of the police brutality claims and racism and all that? Well, she started off around the Ahmaud Arbery call. She demanded first she called the Ahmaud Arbery case a lynching, which you're an elected official to make statements on a case under investigation that are that prejudicial. And I'm not making a claim. I'm not making a claim here of racism on this particular point. While that is a factor, I do mean prejudicial in the sense of you are passing judgment on the accused prior to investigation. You're actively tainting the jury pool. You should be treated like what you're doing is conducting active measures to contaminate the probable jury pool against the defendants, against the accused. The Ahmaud Arbery case, at best, you could argue that it's muddy. You cannot argue that these men just hunted and killed this man for no reason. That's a false statement. It's absolutely not supported by the evidence. The the most detrimental, reasonable argument you can make against the McMillan,
McMichaels.
the McMichaels, is that they took it too far, or that they were overzealous and it ended in a man's death. But the facts on the ground, I mean, Arbery grabbed the guy's gun. That's pretty substantial. Anyway, in the wake of that, she called for protests. She put fuel on the fire. She is personally responsible for the path of acceleration that has led us to cities burning and the deaths of mostly black people as a at the hands of Black Lives Matter. Okay, there's a large number of people. I think we're up to 29 now of people who have been killed, not because they were with the protesters and the police killed them. No, no, by the protesters. And she had nothing to say about that until a little girl, a little black girl, was killed by the BLM protesters. Then she said enough's enough. Well, there were nearly 2 dozen deaths uh, as a part of this whole thing before that, including a retired black police officer and several others. Uh, where's she been? Where's she? Oh, that's where she's been. Right up until this happened, she was actively supporting the Black Lives Matter movement, and still is. Right? She's demanding that. She's making some moves to try and slow down some of the violence. Okay, she's ordered that the occupied zone around the downtown Wendy's, where Rayshard Brooks was killed, she's ordered that that occupied zone be dismantled after the 8-year-old girl was killed. Uh, but Sequoia Turner, okay, you know, and hey, I do not at all mean to trivialize the death of this little girl, because, well, quite frankly, I'm not Mayor Keisha Lance-Bottoms. Um,
Yeah, you're actually sad that a child died instead of pretending to be sad for political football points.
and let's not forget, she has done nothing. She has done nothing to help the two officers involved in the Rayshard Brooks shooting. Which, guys, there's a there's a good argument to be made that George Floyd was a clean kill. There's also a very good argument to be made that George Floyd died because the police went too far. Um, I think that argument leans a little more toward George Floyd. George Floyd brought the problem on himself, and the officers cannot be expected to just assume that every fat guy that resists arrests has advanced diabetes, heart disease, and a methamphetamine habit. Um,
With
oh,
fentanyl
I'm sorry, fentanyl habit,
and
uh,
meth.
and meth. So you can't just expect the officers to always treat every criminal as if they're these delicate little teacups that are full of meth and fentanyl and are just ready to shatter as soon as you put the cuffs on them. Um,
Delicate little teacups. I like that. I like
but
that. That could. I feel like that needs to be verbiage we use going forward. Oh,
uh,
did the cops break another delicate little teacup?
that's the one. But the Rayshard case, Rayshard Brooks stole an officer's weapon and fired it at him. Rayshard Brooks is a clean kill. Rayshard Brooks attempted to murder police officers. And the Atlanta DA that decided to charge these officers with murder,
Howard the coward.
Howard the Coward, let's not forget that just a few weeks prior, he was making other charges against police officers based on the assertion that the taser is a lethal weapon and does not qualify as non-lethal force. Part of the argument that he makes on behalf of Rayshard Brooks is that the taser that Rayshard fired is a non-lethal weapon. You can't have it both ways, sweetheart. You can't. It
Well,
is or it is not.
according to his sexual harassment complaints, Paul Howard very firmly believes he can have it both ways.
No, fair enough. So let me say this about Mayor Lance-Bottoms. I remember when she was running for the office to replace
Kasim
Kasim
Reed.
Reed. Um, there is a reasonable argument to be made that Kasim Reed had a positive influence on the city of Atlanta. But you cannot make that argument without acknowledging that he was one of the most corrupt politicians to ever hold that office. On the heels of Kasim Reed's administration, Clark Howard, yes, the Clark Howard. And if you guys don't know who Clark Howard is, y'all should look him up and listen to his material. And I'll give you a little spoiler. It is almost without exception never, ever, ever political. The extent to which Clark Howard generally makes political statements is he will say that he prefers lower tax codes, right? Clark Howard is uh, he's a money saving genius, right? He made his first million by the time he was 25. I think by his 21st birthday, certainly by his 25th. And he writes all these books about How to what's his catchphrase? How to save money, how to spend less, save more, and avoid getting ripped off. That's it.
Yep.
Goys in the hood. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. We, we have
Since you're derailed, go ahead. I can't look at the comments,
we,
so
we have a viewer in the comments named Goys in the Hood, and it just made me laugh. Anyway, I've got my train of thought back. On the heels of Kasim Reed's incredibly corrupt administration, while Keisha Lance-Bottoms was running as his heir apparent with his absolute support, for the
yep.
first time I have ever heard it, Clark Howard made the explicit political statement on his show on WSB Radio that because she is endorsed by Kasim Reed, the danger that her administration would represent to the already incredibly problematic Hartsfield Jackson Airport was something that could not be ignored, and that you should absolutely, for the sake of the life of this city and for the sake of hoping that we could get a mayor that was not pro child trafficking through the busiest airport in the world for the first time in a decade, you should absolutely vote against Keisha Lance Bottoms, because that's part of the big problem that we have in Georgia. We have the busiest airport in the world just outside of Atlanta, with the I-20 corridor running up from South Florida. There's drug trafficking and
No.
child sex trafficking moving through, and that all belongs
Point of order.
squarely on the shoulders of the Democrats in Georgia.
Point of order. I-20 doesn't go through Florida.
No, the I-20 corridor picks up just north of Jacksonville, Florida, but it is the I-20 corridor that up which through Conyers into Atlanta, up which that drug traffic runs. You're correct. I-20 does not go through Florida, but it's the I-20 corridor up through Metro Atlanta that the drug traffic happens on in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, I remember the show that you're talking about. Clark Howard said she's basically tainted goods because she has Kasim Reed's endorsement.
Yep.
And he was actually kind of uncomfortable because
he
he
doesn't
was,
make political statements on his show.
yes, but you're exactly correct. There's been, just with the airport alone, forget about all the other funny business with the overtime that didn't exist and the Christmas bonuses that were like hundreds of thousands of dollars and all that other stuff that Kasim Reed's administration was associated with. Just the airport alone was worth. Um, his position on it was basically anybody but Keisha Lance-Bottoms. It wasn't a Republican thing. It wasn't a Democrat thing. He didn't endorse anybody. He just said, yeah, probably not her.
Right. And then she got elected, and she made a big deal about that black girl magic. Black girl magic. Black girl magic. Can you imagine if a white man got elected to office and said, "Thank you, white boy magic, white man magic, white
No, right. I
black
mean, we
girl
know what
magic"?
would
That
happen.
sounds a hell of a lot like white power, doesn't it? But it's okay if you're not white to be a virulent racist.
Hey, can I just point out that I actually think Black Girl Magic would be a fantastic title for a porno?
And moving right past that, uh,
Mm-hmm. I'll show you what we do in this mayor's office.
oh, that's enough of that. That's enough of that. That's enough of that. Um,
I could really keep going.
no, I mean it. That's really enough of that. Oh, um, okay. So I want to know where she was. I want to know where she was when armed protesters marched through Georgia's Stone Mountain Park. Um, and before I get the, there will be naysayers that point out, oh, but what about when all the armed protesters went to City Hall to make demands about reopening? Okay, yeah. That's that's exactly that's exactly equivalent. I, I totally remember when all those white armed protesters demanding that their businesses be reopened aimed their weapons at drivers who were who were basically parked on the freeway because the entrance had been shut down by armed protesters, and aimed their weapons at these people in their cars demanding that they be paid reparations. Yeah, it's exactly equivalent. It's one thing to
Yeah,
say Stone Mountain should be protected. It's quite another to say your tax-paying free citizens should be protected from armed ethno supremacists demanding their money at gunpoint. But no, you're not going to see that because she is pro reparations. She's a Democrat. It's what they do.
yeah, and I've asked this question before, and I'll go ahead and ask it again. If we open this reparations can of worms, like, where are the boundaries on that? I mean, how far back do we want to go? Like, did the Egyptians owe the Jews money for shit that happened 5 years ago? Uh, what about the Hutus and the Tutsis? How do you even unfuck that situation? Who owes who reparations in that little juicy conflict?
How
And
about the
then
Irish?
the Irish, and for that matter, how about the English and the French, and the fact that they had centuries of on and off war with each other? I mean, where does this? Where's the line?
Do the Muslims need to pay reparations to
The
European
world?
Christians and all of Africa and, frankly, each other? Uh,
Yeah, I know. Like it's
do the Egyptians have to pay the Jews? Where does it go? I hate to say it, but I think I'm about spent on this topic because, well, it exhausts me. Um,
I mean, Mayor Black Girl Magic. Who's more corrupt, Mayor Black Girl Magic or Mayor Beetlejuice?
Cheetle juice, Cheetle juice, Cheetle juice. Yeah, true, buddy. Oh, that's a good question, and I don't have a good answer for you right now. But
I
you know
mean,
what?
have you ever heard the expression that politics is Hollywood for the ugly?
Yes.
Boy, if she doesn't prove that point. And yeah, I'm totally engaging in ad hominem against an elected official. Oh, and speaking of appearances, did you see the other thing John Ward put out with the interview with Kamala Harris that might not be Kamala Harris?
No, I haven't watched it yet. I saw that he did it. I haven't had a chance to watch it. But speaking of that, let me say to you guys that tried to watch the show yesterday, we had some audio issues. What and I fixed it. I pulled down the live stream replay and replaced it with the corrected video. So that's up there now. Y'all can go watch that. It's us doing a reaction and discussing kind of current events alongside John Ward's modernized retelling of the Patrick Henry "Give Me Liberty" or "Give Me Death" speech. We had a lot of fun doing it, and I think now that the audio's fixed, it's a pretty solid video. Go check that one out, and definitely sub John Ward and watch that video. His actual modern retelling of the Liberty or Death speech. Fantastic piece of work. Um,
Yeah, it's rare, but sometimes the remake surpasses the original.
yeah, in fairness, the remake is more prescient, more current than the original. Um,
Sup, fraudsters? I don't have anything to sell, but I brought some free samples of this whip. Like,
yup. All right, and that said, I think that's the show for today. If you haven't already picked up a copy of The Art of War, grab it from the link in the description. We'll be coming at you with a new book next Tuesday for the Bookfire Mind Club. Talking a little bit
Uh,
more about that.
oh, I thought we were going to actually discuss the art of war next Tuesday. Maybe you and I need to have a planning session.
I talked about The Art of War all last week. I think we've I
Yeah,
think
but
we've
we
dug
haven't
into it.
actually reviewed the book itself.
You missed a lot of shows last week.
No, I didn't. I listened to all of them. You went down 14,000 rabbit holes.
Well, that's fair. All right. Well, that's all I've got for this morning, and we will see y'all tomorrow.